Welcome to Medill Sports Talk. We break down the news this week for the sports you love. What is up, everybody? Episode 19 is coming to you live from Chicago. I cannot believe we're already at episode 19 of Medill Sports Talk. And not only do we have a great show lined up for you today, but we have six new analysts making their MST debuts. I'm real excited. My name is Jordan Klein, and on this week's show, we're breaking down the World Cup, the MLB, and the NFL. And I'm joined by our soccer analysts. We got Drake Hills over here to my right. He's got the beard you wish your beard looked like. And Alex Campbell, who you got to trust me on this one, is wearing foosball socks today to the desk. You don't have to show us. No need to showcase your flexibility. We trust you've got it.
Appreciate it, Jordan.
We're talking about soccer today, and there's so much to cover in the world of soccer since we last spoke to you. But we'd be remiss if we didn't start first with the World Cup. It was France who won it all Sunday, defeating Croatia 4-2. And as SNL Stefan might say, this game had everything. It had an own goal, a handball leading to a goal, and the first goal scored by a teenager in the World Cup final since Pele himself. Crazy stuff. It was simply an action-packed finale to an incredible tournament. So Drake, I got to turn to you first, man. What stood out to you the most about this World Cup?
You know what? You mentioned it with Kylian Mbappe and as well Paul Pogba and the rest of the France team. But I will tell you, in the 53rd minute, you saw that crazy stampede of fans that came onto the pitch in the 53rd minute. And that was one of the things that really surprised me was up until that point, Croatia really did have the momentum. You saw them playing a little bit exactly like how they did against Russia, same thing how they did against Denmark, and the passing was precise. You had Mandzukic coming up front, Ante Rebic and Ivan Perisic were playing great out wide. You know what, Jordan, it was just, up until that point, it was all Croatia, and France took it after that, and you see what happens, 4-2. Precision passing, textbook France football. Alex, what did you see?
Yeah, got to agree with you, Drake. Croatia really fought hard in this game, as they've fought all tournament. They've played 4 overtime games over the course of the knockout stages of this tournament. They've played over 2 hours of extra soccer when compared to France. And really, I think they just ran out of gas in this game. And as you talked about, Drake, France's young players, their young attacking talent, really took over in this game. And it was a World Cup final of firsts. We had the first ever own goal in a World Cup final. We had the first goal, as you mentioned, with the handball, Jordan, awarded by video assistant referee. So really, it was a revolutionary and groundbreaking World Cup final and one of the most exciting World Cup finals in recent memory.
You know, another way in which this was really a revolutionary World Cup is that it can just simply be characterized as a youth movement. I mean, from Mbappe to Kane, I mean, many of the youngest players became the face of this World Cup. Alex, in your mind, how does this World Cup tournament compare to the ones in years past?
Well, you know, Jordan, there's been a lot of talk about how exciting was 2018, how does it compare to World Cups of recent memory, and there's really some interesting statistical analysis to back up that it was the best maybe ever. There were 9 goals scored in the final minute of games or stoppage time of games that either won the game or tied the game. That's more than any World Cup ever, and it's as many as the last 5 combined. Another unique feature of this World Cup was that 43% of the goals were scored on set pieces, so that's either from penalty kicks, corner kicks, or free kicks, and that's by far the most we've ever seen in a tournament in a World Cup. So really, this was a World Cup that showed some new trends like those set-piece goals, but also was maybe the most dramatic and exciting we've ever seen.
No, same thing. I think that with Kylian Mbappe, I think we should go back to him. Young player, FIFA Young Player World Cup of the tournament. But going back to the 2014 FIFA World Cup, Paul Pogba was in the exact same position. That's what France has. They have young players, France being tied second overall for the youngest team at about 25 years of age, with Nigeria just under at 24. It's all about, in this sense, the young stars coming to the international stage. And I think that's what's going to be seen in the future with the FIFA World Cup, the UEFA Euros. You're going to see national teams favoring their younger players, but I think that's the way the football is being played with athleticism. It's not per se all about technician and technique now.
And you know, I gotta say, I think that's so good for the sport because now you have so much young talent that fans can really rally behind and claim as their own. It's an exciting time, I think, in the world of soccer. And of course, the World Cup incredible, but it didn't pass without some major news just startling the soccer world, because after Portugal's early exit, Cristiano Ronaldo, right, announces his departure from Real Madrid to Italian giant Juventus. So Drake, how does this shake up not only the Champions League rankings, but also just the world of soccer as a whole?
You know what, Jordan, Cristiano Ronaldo is in a very interesting pace because he is 34 years old, or 33, excuse me, but not only has he played the most, he's been at Real Madrid since 2009. Imagine how soccer was in 2009 and go all the way back until 2018. The players that have left, the players that have come. He scored 395 goals in Europe, 105 in the Champions League for Real Madrid. He scored the most at 10 against Juventus, which is quite interesting to move to the team that you've basically dominated the most in the UEFA Champions League. For 112 million euros, that's 130 approximately million dollars. A big move, Jordan, because not only is Juventus in a better place in the Champions League, but obviously for Italian football, he's going to be at the top of the goal-scoring list as well.
And you know, what's on the minds of so many people, and it's really a topic of debate now, is whether or not Juventus is arguably getting the best player in the world. Alex, do you think Cristiano Ronaldo is still the best player in the world?
Well, Jordan, there's always this debate about who is the best player, who's the greatest of all time. It's akin to what you see in American sports with LeBron James and Michael Jordan. But the difference with Cristiano and Lionel Messi is we have these two all-time great players playing at the same time. And I've really always thought that these guys were unique players, that they were very different. And if I've had to pick one, I've had to always say, in my mind, that Lionel Messi was the greatest soccer player on the planet. But as for if Ronaldo can keep up the level of play he's shown in his 9 seasons at Real Madrid, to Drake's point, I think you're really expected to see that Ronaldo will be at the top of the goal-scoring charts, that his pace is not going to slow down. And certainly, Juventus will feel they're in a phenomenal position to finally exercise those demons of the past few years in the Champions League when they've been knocked out by Real Madrid, and maybe to finally get one back on their rivals.
You know, that's interesting, Alex, that you mentioned the exercising, because I think that Juventus have exercised their funds with 112 million euros, but also getting their money back in the jersey sales. They've sold out their Cristiano Ronaldo 7 jersey in just less than 2 weeks. So on top of that, I think Cristiano Ronaldo is the best player in Europe. Reason being, if you take a look at his battles against Barcelona, he and Lionel Messi were at the top of the goal scoring charts, obviously. But if you take a look at the overall sector of what's going on between the two clubs in Barcelona and in Real Madrid, I think the battle of who's going to be the best player in Europe will be a little bit more clear, because he's not playing the greatest football team in Spain. He's going to go to Italy, and he's going to go to the Champions League, and that's the only time he will see Lionel Messi.
You know, I'll tell you who also is a very big winner in this whole deal. Netflix. They've got a series on Juventus. The fact that now you've got Cristiano Ronaldo coming there, big win for the video streaming service. Yes. Another big win in the world of soccer is that some of Europe's best clubs are going to be coming to the U.S. for the International Champions Club. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that. And you know, in fact, this Friday, Manchester City and Borussia Dortmund are facing off at Soldier Field here in Chicago, which is exciting. Very fun sporting event to cover. And that means Christian Pulisic, the cover boy for U.S. Soccer, member of Dortmund, is going to be returning to American soil. So, Alex, what does hosting an event like this mean for soccer in the U.S.? They don't make the World Cup this year, but we're bringing some of Europe's best teams to the States. What does that do for soccer? It's
great, Jordan, and really, you have this opportunity in cities across the country, not just Chicago, to showcase world-class soccer talent. Not only players like Christian Pulisic, who is obviously the United States' best star right now, but you've got teams from England, France, Germany, Italy, all coming to the U.S. And as you mentioned, with the U.S. not making the World Cup this summer, this kind of maybe fills the void a little bit of not having as much soccer fever, but there's certainly been a lot of attention still paid to the World Cup in Russia, and that will certainly be flowing across the country throughout the rest of the summer.
No, I think, Alex, you've hit it right on the head. What's going on with the ICC is you're finding players now that are American going into Europe and really making their best of their chances in Europe. With Christian Pulisic, you got Weston McKennie at FC Schalke in Germany. These players, obviously with Pulisic being the best player so far with Borussia Dortmund, he's coming to Chicago, as Jordan, you mentioned, but he will be going to Pennsylvania, going back to Pittsburgh, where he's from, and playing in his home state, and that's what it's all about in America, is getting those players back on home soil and showing off what they've learned in Europe. And it's going to be interesting for Cristiano Ronaldo, for a player, whether he'll be in the Juventus team or not. He'll be showing up against Real Madrid August 4th. So that should be an interesting matchup to see if he's going to play against his old teammates.
I mean, certainly, according to you guys, very exciting time for soccer. Very exciting time. And it was a pleasure to chat about it with you guys today. I think that's going to wrap us up here on the soccer segment of Medill Sports Talk. So everybody at home, all of our cameramen in the studio, please give a hearty round of applause to these two gentlemen for knocking out their first show.
Oh, thank you, Jordan.
Incredible work.
I appreciate it, Jordan.
To use a baseball term, the sport I'm most familiar with, you guys just knocked it out of the park today. And when we come back, Darren Zaslau, Lance Brozdowski, did I pronounce that right?
Brozdowski.
Brozdowski, like Mike Wazowski. And Justin Birnbaum will take you onto the diamond to break down Major League Baseball. So don't go anywhere. This is Medill Sports Talk.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for the sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
At Northwestern University, we are pioneering innovation and achieving excellence across every imaginable discipline. Western University, the possibilities are endless.
If you want to be a parent, it doesn't matter how you play, what you wear, how you dance, or even what direction life takes you. You just need to be there. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care don't need perfection. They just need you.
Welcome back to Medill Sports Talk. I'm Darren Zaslau, joined by our baseball analysts this time, Lance Brozdowski and Justin Birnbaum. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. Welcome to MST. You guys are just called up from AAA into, you guessed it, the big leagues. Let's get into it. Following the conclusion of Tuesday night's All-Star game, we have officially reached the halfway point in the Major League Baseball season. Now, a lot of names have been mentioned as we approach the July 31st deadline, but none bigger than, yes, Manny Machado, who was traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers on Wednesday. Baltimore received 5 players in this deal: top prospect Yusniel Diaz and 4 other minor leaguers. Lance, what does this mean for the Orioles and the Dodgers moving forward?
Well, it's a really interesting trade for the Orioles and what they're getting back. The key piece here is that they're getting back Yusniel Diaz. He's a very good offensive player. He's a righty bat outfielder. He's played up really well in Tulsa and AA for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'm really interested to see what he's doing going forward. In the Futures game on Sunday night, he actually hit 2 home runs on pitches both above 95 miles per hour. Really good bat speed overall. I'm interested to see how he projects. They also got back Dean Kramer, who's a right-handed pitcher from Las Vegas, Nevada University. Not really considered too much of a top prospect, but I think he's got a really good curveball, and going forward, it'll be really interesting to see how he develops. For a team that didn't really have any intentions of acquiring players internationally in the international market, I think this is a really great haul for Manny Machado.
And also, if you're the Dodgers, what do you do with Corey Seager? What do you do with the ultimate utility man, Chris Taylor, which is kind of surprising to have a player like that, your utility guy at shortstop. But again, certainly it should be interesting to see what they do moving forward.
Yeah, Darren, long term, if they decide to bring back Machado, I think it's definitely going to be an interesting to see where everybody ends up. You know that Machado's going to slide into shortstop and Seager will probably move to third. So what happens to Justin Turner? And also, what does that mean for Cody Bellinger? Is he now going to end up in the outfield permanently? And like you said, Chris Taylor, also the super utility guy, can play anywhere, but where are they going to slot him in?
Certainly is an important part to that offense, absolutely. But here's the thing, the Machado trade, well, it wasn't the only eye-opening event to happen over the All-Star break. After all, there was, of course, the thrilling Home Run Derby and the All-Star game. And guys, that All-Star game really felt like the Home Run Derby with 10 long balls being hit in the game, especially off the best pitchers in the league. Justin, what was your biggest takeaway from the All-Tar game?
I think, Darren, that the home runs are the biggest takeaway, and like you had mentioned, there were 10 home runs hit in the All-Star game, which was the most ever and the most since 1971. So the fact that so many home runs are coming now is reflexive of how the ball has changed. The MLB did cop to changing the ball, and that the fact that the ball is now more aerodynamic was unintentional. But last year we saw the most home runs ever hit at 6,105, and this year we have 3,283 already hit. So it seems like the pace is only going up.
It was a lot of fun to watch, too. Guys like Wilson Contreras from the Cubs, who so emotional when they get that call into the All-Star game. He goes yard. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. I think one of the other big things we really need to focus on is the viewership in particular that happened. So we had a 32% drop from the prior year on the Home Run Derby in particular. But if you look back to 2016, it's only a 1% drop. So then you start to think to yourself, well, what exactly happened in 2017? Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez are 2 major pieces from the New York market in this Home Run Derby from prior year, and that drove up a lot of the viewership. Jump forward to the All-Star game itself, flat year over year in terms of viewership. So what does this all mean? This all means that big markets still dictate an insurmountable amount of success on these massive events on the massive stage, and I think it's really important, even though baseball is a very regional sport, for us to understand how big markets like New York and Chicago can influence the viewership in events like this.
Well, our nation's capital certainly had a treat, absolutely. All right, guys, now let's take a look at the second half of the season. And we all know that these final 81 games will separate the pretenders from the contenders. Lance, what are your storylines to look for during the second half of the season?
I'm going to go back to St. Louis here, and I think one of the more interesting things is that Yadier Molina might actually be a player manager at the major league level. We haven't seen this in ages, but to understand it, we have to go all the way back and understand all the difficulties that Cardinals Nation has had with Mike Matheny. He was actually laid off, relieved of his duties on July 14th, and now we're looking at a really interesting scenario. The Cardinals really don't change managers a lot at all. Tony La Russa and Mike Matheny were 2 of the bigger pieces of this team all the way back since 1996. 2 managers in that time period. Now we're looking at Yadier Molina. Really interesting. What exactly happens? Pete Rose was the last player manager, 1984. Traded from the Expos to the Reds. Managed through 1989. And everyone knows what happened to Pete Rose. So Yadier Molina as a player manager would be really interesting for Major League Baseball.
If either of you guys have seen the movie Major League, the next Roger Dorn, maybe, if you will. That would be exciting to see. Justin, how about you? What should we be looking out for?
My eyes are on Scooter Gennett. He's been unbelievable the past 2 seasons, and it's really surprising that Milwaukee actually cut this guy. You know, he wasn't really able to hit left-handed pitching in Milwaukee, but ever since he's come over to Cincinnati, he's put himself on the map. And with the way he's hitting lefties now, he's batting .308 against lefties this season. I think he can be perennially a guy who makes the All-Star team at second base year after year.
Very good defensively. Of course, you have that offensive production, certainly. These are storylines that will definitely be fun to watch. We'll see how they map out. Now, Justin, how about this? Give me one prediction that you have for the rest of the season. We've got betting going on now throughout the country. What team, trend, or player would you put your money down on?
I'm going to give you 2, Darren. So the first one I want to give is Blake Snell as the dark horse to win Cy Young. Bovada had odds for him at plus 3,300 to win the Cy Young at this point in the season. So I think it's really interesting because he's got stats that are just on par with everybody else who's at the top of the rankings. He's got 12 wins, a 2.27 ERA, and 134 strikeouts. So I think he could legitimately make a case for the Cy Young. And also, I think the Yankees at even to win the American League East is a good bet as well, just because the Yankees are an extremely stacked team and they're going to get hot, and the Boston Red Sox cannot continue at their torrid pace.
All right, we got a crafty lefty, and we got the Bronx Bombers. Lance, how about you?
I'm gonna look towards the National League East. Actually, I'm really interested to see 9-1 for the Nationals. I think is fantastic value. That division's really competitive right now. They actually have higher odds than the Diamondbacks, the Brewers, and the Phillies. I think on paper the Nationals are a much better team. I'm really interested to see how they work with their bullpen. Sean Doolittle's considered one of the best relievers in baseball. I think he's taken that throne from Kenley Jansen to some extent with his struggles early in the year. They also have Ryan Madson. They traded for Kelvin Herrera. This is a really good team overall. And then in the AL Central, I also want to look at the Indians possibly winning the pennant at 5-1. It's really, really hard to bet against a team like the Yankees, the Astros, or even the Red Sox. But on paper, I'm going to bet on one of the best rotations in baseball. That's Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco, Trevor Bauer, and Mike Clevenger. This is a really, really interesting team. 5-1 is fantastic value on the Indians.
And we got the Tribe, and maybe Bryce Harper winning the home run derby is the spark the Washington Nationals need. We'll find out. Well, that's all the time we have for baseball talk. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. It was great having you on the show. For Lance Brozdowski and Justin Birnbaum, I'm Darren Zaslau, and when we come back, we'll head to the gridiron with Nick Mantas and our NFL analysts Eric Frazier and Casey Bannon. We'll have that for you up next right here on Medill Sports Talk.
If you want to be a parent, it doesn't matter how you play, what you wear, how you dance, or even what direction life takes you. You just need to be there. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care don't need perfection. They just need you.
Every day across America, excess food is gathered by a network of good people at local food banks, giving hope to millions of children who struggle with hunger. They've earned their wings, and you can too. Together, we can solve child hunger. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
Cook foods to the right temperature using a food thermometer. 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Really? Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back into this live edition of Medill Sports Talk. I'm your host, Nick Mantas, and today I'm joined by our NFL analysts, Eric Frazier and Casey Bannon. Guys, let's chop up some of this NFL news that we've been hearing about lately. Starting with the Steel City. The City of Champs is struggling to hold on to one of their most prized possessions. Running back Le'Veon Bell reportedly turned down a 5-year, $70 million deal that would have put him at $14 million a season. One of the main reasons that might be that Bell is not signing with them is that he was asking for $17 million a season. A little bit of money that I wouldn't mind having in my bank account right now. So, Eric, do you see the Steelers, going in this situation? Is their front office not taking in Bell as one of the best running backs? Do they not value him, or is he asking for way too much?
No, I don't think that Le'Veon Bell is asking for way too much at all. I mean, I can go on about his stats and whatnot. I mean, 5,000 yards rushing in 6 years in the league, 2,000 yards, over 2,000 yards receiving. I think he's earned his keep. He's earned his due in Pittsburgh. Originally, I thought that it was going to be Le'Veon Bell didn't want to be in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh wanted him, but he put out a tweet after they failed in the contract negotiations, and that basically he wants to retire the Steelers. They just didn't get it done, and the NFL is a business. So I look at it like this way, is that the Steelers need to pay him. They need to – I looked at their cupboard, and their cupboard's very, very bare. The next two running backs behind them combined for about 32 carries for about 100 and something yards. They need to pay him. Otherwise, you got other suitors like Cleveland, San Francisco, and the Jets that's basically in line to get Le'Veon Bell if they can't get this deal done next year.
Well, that is definitely going to take it apart, because every single week that he misses, Le'Veon Bell, he's missing a $856,000 check. That's not bad. Every single week you get paid $800,000. Just that. Just a little bit of money. With that being that, with understanding that might be incentive for him to stay off of a holdout, where do you see the situation going?
I think he'll eventually come back by week 1 if you're really about your paper the way that Le'Veon Bell says he is, and I believe that he is. He'll be back by week 1. However, that's not what I find interesting here. He's going to be 27 in February. He's a very old 27. He carried the ball 382 times, Nick, in 13 games in his last year at Michigan State. For example, DeMarco Murray just retired at 30. He carried it 282 times in his last year at Oklahoma. At 27, historically, that is the top of the roller coaster for running backs. Everything else, you are going downhill. So I think it needs to be addressed in the CBA as far as rookie cap slots. That's a bigger discussion on getting your money earlier. But running backs are largely interchangeable. I think both parties need to do what's best for them.
Well, this next season, depending on how that goes, we'll definitely have, some different storylines that we're really interested in. Case Keenum is now the gunslinger, in Denver. We got Kirk Cousins out in Minnesota, and okay, it's reasonable to say that RG3 is in Baltimore, and we'll see how that all pans out. For you, Eric, which storyline are you most interested in? It gets you really excited.
Well, I can speak from personal experience about the Minnesota storyline. I just moved in from there, and I worked in the sports radio scene in there. So pretty much, I know about the whole situation. And basically, I'm looking forward to see what happens with this year, because last year on the roster they had Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, Teddy Bridgewater. Basically, Bradford went out with injury the second week, and then Case Keenum turned around and led the Vikings to a 13-3 record, 1 game away from hosting their own Super Bowl. So they had weapons in the backfield: Dalvin Cook, Latavius Murray, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph, along with a host of others on the defense. I want to see what next year happens with Kirk Cousins leading that way. So pretty much that's why I'm looking at the storyline, is that see what Kirk Cousins can get him to the championship.
Now, he's got a lot of weapons that you were mentioning that can really help him throughout this season, so we'll see whether or not that's going to be interesting in that. So do you have another storyline you're interested in, or is you kind of excited for Minnesota?
I'm going to go a little bit off the board here, not that that's not interesting, but Ndamukong Suh in L.A., the scariest man in the NFL by far, against what I consider the best player in the NFL, Aaron Donald, 1-2 in their position. I'm not big on dream teams, but I don't see a scenario in which this doesn't work. Both guys have to be double teamed. You can't assign 4 blockers to a one-on-one pass protection against these guys. So what do? Do you try to get the ball out quicker? Russell Wilson in Seattle? Well, now you can't. Remember, they signed Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters, the 2 best in the league at getting their hands on you at the line of scrimmage, being physical. I don't know. I don't know what Arizona's doing with their offense these days. The Seahawks offense is constipated. Jimmy Garoppolo is just a baby back there. I can't wait to see. This is real LA football. This is what we've been waiting. I think we're about to see a whole lot of Rams snapbacks back in the clubs, back in the club scene in LA.
That'll be interesting to see. More of a mean team, with a little bit of attitude that LA's used to. So, a team that doesn't really show a lot of attitude, but they don't really care, is shipping up to the greater Boston area. Those New England Patriots have some tension to work out, arguably with the greatest player ever. That's right, we're talking Tommy Brady. Fans have been grumbling about Brady and how the Patriots have handled the end of his career. After sending his projected placement, Jimmy Garoppolo, to San Francisco, it takes some pressure off Brady, but leaves the fans wondering what happens when he can't play at that MVP level anymore. Add that to his laser focus on his TB12 company, off the side, and him being this quote-unquote godly athlete who drops a pass in the Super Bowl, and his absence from OTAs. Casey, do fans have a right to be worried or angry with Brady? Well, we'll see how this pans out, but do you think that the fans already making noise about Brady and whether or not we're going to have a backup for him? What do you see?
To answer your question, no, they don't have a right to be mad.
They don't have a right at all.
In fact, the only right they have, Patriots fans, let me be very clear, the only things you are allowed to say to Tom Brady is thank you and yes, sir. When you go to when you win 5 Super Bowls and you go to 8, you do not have to go to OTAs. You can request that you do not have a backup as handsome as Jimmy Garoppolo, okay? OTAs stands for only the average in this business, okay? He's not required to be there. Everything the Patriots have done over the course of his career has been to help Tom Brady get to this point late in his career. He gets the ball out last year in 2.7 seconds. I think the year before that was 2.5. Year before that it was under 2. He does not get hit. He doesn't eat nightshade vegetables. He practices how to fall. He can swipe his key card at Gillette Stadium for as long as Tom Brady wants, and the most delusional fan base in the NFL, the New England fans, will just have to deal with it.
Well, those fans will definitely have to be interested in what happens in 2020 when Tom Brady becomes a free agent. Say he wins another Super Bowl, and he's getting up there into his mid-40s, and now when he becomes a free agent or decides to retire, what then?
What then is that the Patriots need to do something about it right now and do something in the offseason, in the next season, to prepare for his potential retirement. And he's one of the oldest people in the league, born in the 70s. He's not getting any younger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they don't want to be faced with a situation like the Colts faced a few years ago, in which Peyton Manning went down with an injury and nobody was back there in the cover. All they have in the backfield behind Brady is Brian Hoyer and Danny Edelman. So basically, they need to get something right now to get somebody tuned up. They had Matt Castle, they had Jimmy Garoppolo there, and they both let them go. They both showed out when Brady got injured and Brady got suspended. So they need to retool, and they need to get basically going, because
try to sign somebody
to your point, Eric, this is not Indianapolis. Okay, Bill Belichick has turned water into wine multiple times.
The system rather than the player.
And I think Tom Brady, I know people don't want to hear it, he might be a system guy to a degree, okay?
But I think the system's going to go bust if they don't get this
Well, he doesn't have Scott Tolzien back there, and I think New England's pretty has a good track record of developing players that Indianapolis does not.
Well, we'll see if that can develop into something more interesting. For us here, that is all the time we have on this episode of Medill Sports Talk. But make sure you tune in next week, because it's our 20th episode. Until then, follow us on Twitter and Snapchat at Medill Sport Talk. Check out all 19 episodes that we've already done. For Eric, Frazier, Casey, and everybody in our entire crew here in Chicago, I'm Nick Mantas. We'll see you next time.